Hello and welcome to ISC2 Insights. I'm Chris Green. Joining me today to talk about a very interesting challenge, namely rebuilding and reconstructing a security team within a large organization and the considerations and challenges of doing that, is Jonathan Lampe, CISSP. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, what we're talking about is really something, I would say, quite unusual to see an organization do, especially a large organization. You know, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar tool manufacturer, taking an existing cybersecurity setup and effectively starting again. And rebuilding, reconstituting the cybersecurity team within a large established body is not an undertaking that you do lightly. Really, why and how did you do this?
Well, I don't want to alarm you, but this wasn't the result of a major security incident or a major regulatory finding. Those are typically some of the events you might see that kickstart one of these events at other corporations.
Yes.
We took a much more proactive approach as to how we approach this or why we approach this. A lot of this had to do with a couple of the existing security teams that were out there. Various engineering groups that started to stand up their own organizations, and they were starting to compete with each other, not only for resources, but also for prioritization. And as they competed with each other, there was uncertainty within the organization. So there was a need for us to consolidate tools, priorities, resources around those aspects. The other piece was that we were starting to look at competing more effectively in other global markets. And global markets, you might even say some of the domestic markets, say California, have their own regulatory challenges. And in order to speak effectively to those as an organization, we needed to centralize what was happening in the security organization so we could speak externally and coordinate internally around the same organization.
The situation you had with the security team and the tools and the technologies that you were initially operating with, what that grew into, was that purely just out of a change in need, or is that the byproduct of things like mergers and acquisitions, changing business directions, left you with a setup that wasn't necessarily operating the way it needed to for the future?
It was definitely the latter, where we had some organic organizations or functions that had built up around some of the security pieces that you might think of as typical. So let's say identity, or let's say that we had a piece of engineering work with legal on some piece of what would normally be GRC. Those functions were happening in a little bit of a siloed scenario. We really needed to get those all moving in the same direction and with the same degree of emphasis. There was also a little bit of an aspect of competing priorities that were drawing resources. So a team would spin up a project to effectively tackle this problem, but it would also leave the 75% or the 80% of part of the organization that wasn't participating out of the loop. So a lot of those early challenges were essentially resetting the bar. What are those standards that we wanted to attain? What are those tools and teams and approaches that we wanted to standardize across the organization? And then how we facilitate how that happened. Whether it was through direct resources, we were able to hire a few people, but largely it was leaving people in place, allowing them to do what they continue to do well, but just coordinate. So we're all moving in the same direction.
So, this was one area I was quite interested in, was obviously you brought in new people, but you didn't suffer a brain drain. You didn't have, essential skills and accumulated knowledge heading back out through this reorganization.
That's very important. In fact, that's a little bit of what I like about this organization and other organizations where we've had the chance to put up this technique. We were able to create a feeling of safety, a feeling where you would allow these technical professionals, and of course, you and I both know it's difficult to acquire great technical professionals.
Absolutely.
So over time, we had to make sure that we made these technical professionals feel safe, that we allowed them to pick, in some cases, where they wanted their career to go, and be able to retrain them. And obviously ISC2 fills a role in terms of the training needs of what we needed out of security. But in order to make them feel safe, that's the only way to bring them along on the journey and eventually champion and add their own twist to it as well.
So you touched on the word training there. And so we've got to ask you, when you're bringing in new people, new directions, new ways of working, new tool sets, how did you go about dealing with the training overhead that would have almost certainly have established?
It varies. Obviously, ISC2 does a fantastic job in terms of holistic training in areas of, let's say, security architecture. It's some fantastic people who work with me with some of those certifications. I have the CISSP, held on to that thing for 25 years, which gives me the holistic view of everything that goes on, as well as the continuing education pieces. So in those training situations, it really matters, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to stand up somebody who's going to be an expert in this area? Great, and ISC2 training certification is often a good way to do it. But we also, of course, do weave in vendor training.
Yes.
And we also weave in a few experiential things within the company itself. We're also big proponents in terms of cross-training. We want to make sure there's those bottlenecks on those critical technologies or those critical processes. So we do a lot of things cross-training, which leads to good documentation. And then, of course, that's augmented at the higher level when you bring in training like ISC2 that gives you a better view of, all right, now I know enough about this space that I'm not reacting to what the vendor's telling me, but I'm actually going out and setting a roadmap for identity. I'm setting a roadmap for how I want my network architecture laid out.
From this process, what would you say were the biggest learnings? What worked well? What didn't? What would you do again? What would you very clearly avoid doing again?
Sure. One of the main things that is valuable in this process, and a few other times I've stood up departments or teams within other organizations, is to allow some of that shared enthusiasm that you get from those other business units to actually drive the process. One of the more famous examples that I use on that is around the topic of code scanning.
Yeah.
It's a very common tool. You can get them from a variety of different vendors. I have my opinions as to what's good, as to what's bad. The last couple of times I've done a code scanning eval, I haven't run it. I've given it to the dev teams. Let them run it, own it, learn what it's about. I'm going to get some better results out of a security team because I know they're going to use it, but allow them to go in and make those first mistakes. And so we actually have a shared investment in the tool. It's not like security told us to do this thing and it failed. It's security asked us to find a tool that did X, and maybe first iteration didn't do exactly what we wanted it to do.
Right.
By allowing those teams to bring their enthusiasm, to drive a process, and we're almost there just as quality control, at least on the surface, allows them to really invest in that tool and really leads to better outcomes.
One area I do have to ask about is I suppose the cultural challenge. You created a new team and a new way of working, or reconstituted team and a new way of working. But it sounds very much bringing in a startup mentality in an established large organization. How do you make that really work?
You would be surprised. I did join a fantastic organization when it comes to that type of culture. Sure, we're 100 years old, but we've also been doubling in size every 5 years for a while now. And that part of the organization attracted me, and in fact kind of funded our organization getting off the ground. Mm-hmm. But that part of our organization attracted me because that does blend a lot of those startup elements with a larger organization. So you mentioned culture. As a manufacturer that essentially goes out there and takes market share, that's an aggressive culture.
Yes.
And so where do you plug security into it? So one of the analogies that I use in that example is take the idea of equipping the athlete. The athlete needs to go out there, compete, and win. The company obviously does too. So what can we do as a security organization? Okay, we're the trainer, we're the doctor. We keep that athlete from being sick, from having food poisoning, from being unable to perform at the moment they have to perform. So you can weave themes like that into even a very aggressive culture, and still effectively have a message that operates underneath the overall corporate message.
What advice would you give to someone that's contemplating the same kind of drastic reimagining of their cybersecurity team, particularly one, in an environment where, security needs to really be integrated at the lowest level of the operations, like in manufacturing?
Right. And for that is where that startup mentality really does come into play. You start off and you identify the pain points, whether those pain points are things that the organization is saying, we would pay good money to do this. And you often see this by other business units trying to spin up something that should be in GRC or identity or somewhere else. You find those pain points, you lay out your goals, and then you reorient your program around those different goals. Part of what I had a chance to talk about recently was some of that imagination, where if you're off target with those goals, you need to actually go back into your organization and think about recycling some of those resources that the rest of the organization perceives as redundant or slow. Because as an organizational leader, if you're not looking at utilizing those resources to their fullest, someone else is looking at your resources to utilize for their fullest.
Wise words indeed. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. As always, keep an eye on our content at ISC2.org/ISC2 Insights. Until our next video, thank you again for joining us, and goodbye.